Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. I'm Jim Cardle. With U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder's resignation, the Obama administration's recent announcement that it will wait until after November's elections to act on immigration reform, as well as the Obamacare website's recent data breaches at healthcare.gov, we're pleased to be able to visit today with Congressman Lamar Smith, Chairman of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Smith's district stretches from Austin to San Antonio. He is the past chairman of the House Judiciary Committee and says that the Obama administration should make its plans for amnesty public for the American people to analyze prior to any action after the November election. Congressman Lamar Smith from House District 21 is here to visit and answer our questions today on Texas Insider TV. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Jim, as always.
I know you're on the run and in the middle of a very, very busy day. In particular, we're going to date the video, but earlier in the morning, Attorney General Eric Holder announced he's going to be stepping down by the end of the year. You're the former chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. You've filed efforts to address Fast and Furious and other things. Talk about the resignation or pending resignation of Eric Holder, if you would.
You're right. The Judiciary Committee I sit on does have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice, so we've been interacting with Eric Holder for 6 years now. And I certainly, on a personal level, wish him every success in his future. However, I am, frankly, have been disappointed by the Department of Justice over the last several years. If there is any government agency that ought to be above partisanship, that ought to believe in equal application of the law and justice for all, it should be the Department of Justice. And yet, this administration has politicized the Department of Justice. The administration has directed the Attorney General, Mr. Holder, not to enforce laws, to ignore laws, to try to make laws, and also this is an administration that has refused to allow Eric Holder to investigate such scandals as Fast and Furious, where the administration sold guns to drug runners, and somehow that was going to help locate the drug runners. Instead, the guns were used against us. They refused to investigate the IRS scandal, where the IRS targeted conservative groups. So this has been a very partisan administration and a partisan Department of Justice, and that's regrettable.
Let me drill down just real briefly before moving on to some more domestic policy issues. The IRS investigation, the targeting lowest learners, been voted by you all under contempt. Is there an update there, or what is coming down the pike, if anything?
The most recent there is that this last week, Lois Lerner actually talked to members of the media, but still has refused to talk to a committee in Congress. And we would like for her to come to Congress under oath. She's taken the Fifth Amendment, refused to testify on the grounds that it might incriminate her, which says a lot. And if she's going to talk to the media, come talk to Congress, tell us what you know.
We'll be looking for further developments on that. And now, if I can, you have been in. We want to thank you for coming in again and revisit an issue, and that is the border security. You are the founder of the Border Security Caucus.
Sure.
There's been, frankly, a lot of news in the last couple weeks about the administration putting off until after the election any activity. You all in the House have acted, but yet it's accused by the White House Congress is not acting. Bring us up to speed on the border and amnesty proposals, if you can.
I did start that Border Security Caucus this Congress. I can't believe we didn't have one before. I've already got over 70 members, and we'll pick up and grow that beyond the 70 number in the next Congress. The President, very cynically, I thought, said he intended to issue these executive orders to give legalization or amnesty to millions of people in the country who are here illegally. Mm-hmm. And when he saw the public opinion polls, 75% of the American people disagreed with him, said you need to work with Congress, not just decide yourself what laws you're going to overturn. He saw the polls and then said, well, I'm not going to issue those executive orders before the election, I'm going to issue them after the election. Clearly, in admission, they knew that he knew the executive orders were unpopular and that they would have hurt Democrats in this election cycle. So I hope he doesn't do it at all. He has no legal justification for it. In fact, the President himself has said twice over the last couple of years that he has no authority to do it under the Constitution or anything else, and now he's talking about trying to make laws himself. and the American people are not going to like it if he does.
Talk, if I can drill down in that a little bit, because you've been on record here the last couple of days as saying that you would, on a moment's notice, go back and vote in Congress. You all are now rumored to be addressing this possibly in a lame duck session or the president after the November elections. He had initially said he would not announce until the month of August, but now we're looking at the lame duck session. What do you see in that regard, or the timing for the election?
If the president issues his executive orders, and excuse me for thinking he's going to do this, but it is pretty cynical. I look for him to issue an executive order the day or two before Thanksgiving or the day or two before Christmas, when he knows the media is not paying attention and all the members of Congress are out of town, and try to get away with it without paying a political price. It is still unconstitutional and contrary to his oath of office for him to try to change immigration laws himself. So I strongly disagree with him. I hope he will change his mind, and quite frankly, if this war we're involved with in the Middle East becomes even more serious, then I think it's going to look pretty frivolous for him to start giving amnesty to illegal immigrants when he ought to be concentrating on winning the war against the Islamic State. So there's still hope he won't do it. I hope he comes to his better senses.
You mentioned the involvement over in the Middle East, the war against ISIS or the terrorist groups over in the Middle East. And let's move to that if I can real quick, because there again you have been in the news. The president has started activities, but I believe he needs to get permission from Congress, notify the American people. What's the update on the timing for that in particular, and whether or not he can actually get away with military action without congressional approval?
The president absolutely must come to Congress. That's the law of the land. It's the War Powers Act. He has to come to Congress within 60 days of initiating hostilities against foreign individuals. And come to Congress, let's have an open debate. I think the American people want their elected representatives to force the president to come explain his actions. I want to know what his goals are, how he's going to accomplish his goals, how is he going to achieve victory, how is he going to defeat the Islamic State, what's the end game, how long is it going to take, and when are the troops coming home. The president has not talked in any detail about any of those subjects, and so that's another reason for us to have this debate in Congress. The president says he doesn't need to come to Congress, that he's going to rely on a resolution that Congress passed in 2001 under a different president that involved different countries, Afghanistan and Iraq. Now we're talking about another country, Syria. Jim, I don't often agree with the New York Times, but I could have written their lead editorial yesterday where they said the president must go to Congress and get authority, consult with Congress, and I agree with that and hope he will do again what the law requires him to do. You're seeing a pattern here of the president ignoring immigration laws, ignoring laws that involve the War Powers Act. He's ignored his own Obamacare laws. He's ignored welfare laws. Where does it stop? This is a presidency out of control.
There's always a first time for everything, you and the New York Times. I want to say briefly again, thanks for joining us, folks, for this edition of Texas Insider TV. We're glad to be visiting with the chairman of the Space, Science, and Technology Committee, former chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Congressman Lamar Smith, out of San Antonio and Bexar County. On that same note, before getting to your EPA and your healthcare.gov, describe, if you can, in the last 3 weeks, what is the mood of you and your members on the floor as you're seeing the president position himself, or you're debating whether or not you're going to be able to vote on a matter of national security?
I think most members of Congress want the president to come to the House, come to the Senate, have that debate, be transparent. That's his promise to the American people. And let's hear the explanations for how are you going to achieve your goals in defeating the Islamic State. And airstrikes, the military experts are telling us, are not enough. There's never been a war won with airstrikes alone. So if airstrikes don't do it, Mr. President, what's the next step? Are you going to take the next step? How long is it going to take to do it? And on and on and on. So there are lots of questions, and we need to get those answers from the president. And the only way to do that is, in fact, for the president to come to Congress, as he's required by law to do, and get authority.
And finally, Congressman, a final question. I know you got to run. There's been a breach of the healthcare.gov. People are aware of Target, Home Depot. You've issued your second subpoena.
Yes.
with your committee on science, space, and technology. What's the update on that effort for healthcare.gov?
The first subpoena I issued was directed to the Environmental Protection Agency. I was the first Science Committee chairman in 21 years to issue a subpoena, and I want the data that they're using to justify all these expensive regulations. They're refusing to give it to us so far, even though it was paid for by the taxpayers' dollars. I hope we can get that data. The reason they won't give it to us, I suspect, is because it doesn't show what they claim that it shows. The subpoena last week was against the administration in regard to Obamacare. We want to talk to their expert, who supposedly was going to make the website, the greatest accumulation of personal data on the American people, was supposedly going to make it break-proof, and yet it's been hacked numerous times, and I'm going to get the expert and find out how insecure Obamacare website is. He's refused to testify so far. I believe because of the subpoena, he will now talk to us next month.
Well, Congressman, we're going to leave it at that. You've got to run beyond national TV and radio, I know. Appreciate you coming
Jim,
by.
always good to be with you, Jim.
Folks, remember to tune back in for future editions of Texas Insider TV, where you're either an insider or you're not. Thanks, Congressman Lamar Smith, for coming by today. I'm Jim Cardle. Thanks.